Hitman is the newest film directed by Richard Linklater. It follows the character of Gary, who's played by Glenn Powell, who is a full-time college professor while on the side has a part-time gig working for the New Orleans Police Department, and he is brought on at a certain point in the film as a undercover hitman, with the goal of this being that they would get these people arrested that try to pay him to kill these people. Business is good, it's going like it usually does until he comes across a client who he feels a little more sympathetic towards and feels like isn't really the right person for this kind of transaction to go down, and he partially drops the shtick for her to leave this whole thing and live a better life, and they actually pursue a relationship together, and this starts to really conflict with his part-time profession that he has working for the New Orleans PD. This is also sort of based on a true story. There are some parts of it that are true and other parts that are fabricated. I really enjoy Richard Linklater's style of filmmaking. He's one of the first directors that I can recall roughly a decade ago now. It was about the time that I can remember starting to get into films kind of as much as I am now, and remembering names, remembering directors, writers, music composers for films, stuff like that. He's one of the first ones I can remember, thinking, oh, check out this new Richard Linklater movie, or going to see this new Spielberg movie. Like, he was one of those first guys for me that I would get excited for a movie because of who was directing and because he was directing it. I also just think it's really cool how much he embraces the Austin culture. He lives in Austin, Texas. A lot of his movies are based there and they take place there. I have a decent amount of family that actually lives around the Austin area too, so I know the city well, or at least I like to think that I do. And I just think it's cool that he is so into the Austin, Texas culture, because it is unique, and it's cool to see someone of his status into something like that. He's a good director, don't get me wrong, but I'm always more so impressed by his writing and by the dialogue in his films. And with this one, it's really no different. This, even though I gave that whole synopsis prior to where I'm at now in the video, it really is about people and our interactions with other people, relationships we may develop, how we change around other people. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely am different when I'm around family members, when I'm around friends, if I'm at a job or something, or I'm out in public at a random event. I have the different sides and versions of myself that I present to people, and I think we all do. I think we can all relate to that. That is portrayed, I think, very well in this movie, as well as how people adapt to different kinds of people, how they may change and try to fit in with others. So in addition to this movie having a good amount of humor and a good amount of darkness too, dark humor especially, I just really appreciated the observation of humans and human interactions. That was one of the most substantial things I got out of the screenplay with this film, so just props to Linklater for that, as well as Glenn Powell. Both of them wrote the story for this movie. I think they did a really good job. It was a neat experience watching this movie, as it was overall, I would say, a comedy. It has comedy throughout all three acts, but just the progressive darkness that kind of loomed over the film as it went on. I actually learned more about these characters, Glenn Powell's, or also Adria Arjona, who plays the love interest of Gary. Madison is her name. You learn more about these characters as the film goes on, and they just turn out not to be quite the people they seem to be, and it's a little twisted. Like, these are not necessarily your typical protagonists that you would see in a film. If anyone saw Lisa Frankenstein earlier this year, it's somewhat similar to that. Not exactly. You don't have people just like chopping off limbs and killing people casually like they do. It's not quite to that extent, but it's not too far off either. These are not really good people. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it says anything about me personally, but I just find those kinds of characters to be the most interesting. The ones that are not exactly moral characters, that are unsure of what they want, that are unpredictable with their actions. As the viewers, you like them in certain moments, you don't like them other moments. I find those to be just always the most fascinating characters in any film or show. The goody two-shoes people that are squeaky clean and have nothing wrong with them, boring as hell. I much prefer people that are complicated and hard to understand. Glenn Powell's character especially, I found it just be so interesting how different he was in these different parts of his life, when he was working with the police or when he was working as a professor, and just the different sides to his character. It admittedly reminded me a lot of Indiana Jones, just seeing him teaching this class and then seeing him do these other things on the side. It's a little bit like Indiana Jones and Don Draper. I'll say it's kind of a mix of those two types of characters. I also just want to give a shout out to the character of Jasper, who's portrayed by Austin Amelio. I want to point him out in particular because I feel like a lot of people walk out going, that guy was an asshole, I hated Jasper, he was the worst. Yeah, he's definitely kind of a douchebag, you could say. But I felt he was actually one of the more smarter characters in the movie, and I understood him. I kind of understood why he was the way he was, and he sort of loses his job, basically, at the beginning. And he has a chip on his shoulder, and sure, he's an asshole, but you know what? I can kind of get behind his actions a little bit, even though I didn't agree with all of them. I thought he was a good character, and I thought that Emilio did a good job. And yeah, I just had a really fun time watching them kind of lure these people in to hiring this fake hitman and then getting arrested. It was a funny, the way they portrayed it, I won't say exactly, but it was a kind of funny running gag of all these different scenes when he would be meeting with these people and they would hand him the money, the meeting would be over, but then they would get arrested basically right after. It was a very funny gag that they implemented into the film. The romance was pretty good too. I thought it was pretty well portrayed. The chemistry was there, and I'll just say, changes that happened towards the end with the two of them, though maybe sudden, I think felt justified, and I could see why their decisions sort of were unpredictable in that way. Hitman was a great time in the theater. I'm glad I got to see it in the theater. For those of you who don't know, at the time I'm recording this at least, this is only being shown in select theaters and eventually will drop onto Netflix. So if you don't catch it in the theater, and if you have Netflix, you can just watch it there. I would recommend the theater though. I mean, I'm a movie theater guy, so of course I'm just always going to recommend that. But I really do think it's worth seeing this in the theater if you can. Really enjoyed it all the way through. Thought it was super well written and acted. And certain characters I thought just had a lot of richness and substance to them. It comes off as this funny and fairly light movie on the surface, but deep down it's actually pretty damn dark, if you ask me. And I like that. What can I say? You know, that those kinds of stories just appeal to me. Overall, Hitman for me get a 9 out of 10. If you have seen this movie, please let me know what you think of it, or when it drops on Netflix, watch it later. Let me know then too. You know, I'm fine with getting comments later. It's no problem. Whenever I get comments, I'm just always happy to see them. Off the top of my head, definitely one of the better Linklater films I've seen. I mean, the guy can just do everything. He can do School Rock, Boyhood, The Before Sunset movies, Dazed and Confused. I feel like he could just really do anything. This, once again, is something very different and very original, even though it's kind of based on a true story, so it's not really an original screenplay, but I think you know what I mean. But yeah, that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video, I guess. Yeah, peace out.